What do you do when you have the never-ending urge to change the status quo, but don't have the strength to make it happen? This is the journey we follow through the eyes of Fighter D, one of the immortal invaders tasked with world domination. A character who we see outclassed and outmatched time and time again, but his morals, his goals, and his tenacity never change. That's why today we're going to talk about who Fighter D is and what makes him such a compelling character. So, if you find yourself enjoying this video, feel free to like and subscribe. Anyway, let's get started. Ranger Reject fits into this strange category of manga where there really aren't any villains, only antagonists. For the most part, everyone is fighting for their own sense of justice without outright trying to be an over-the-top villain. We, however, follow the one, the only Fighter D, who we can definitively say is the protagonist of this story. And when we keep that in mind with who D is as a character, everyone else is the antagonist of the story. D is a fantastically written character, and every time he comes into conflict, we are shown that it isn't just external battles that he's fighting, but also the ideas that conflict with his own. From the beginning, when he hates all humans, to where we currently are at in the story, where he just wants to take down the Dragon Keepers and anyone in his way. Every choice he makes feels deliberate, but he seems so unpredictable. We know that D has no issues with blending in or using those around him in order to achieve his goal, but we also know that he has a sense of honor. This is all surrounded by the fact that he is at heart a villain. For those of you who are anime only, I apologize, but this is where we get into manga spoilers. The greatest change to D's character starts with meeting Hibiki Sakurama, an individual who, just like him, thinks that invaders deserve a better life. Hibiki is a bit more complex than that, but let me know if you want a character analysis on him too. While these two start off wanting the same thing, they strive to achieve it in very different ways. D wants to destroy the Dragon Keepers, while Sakurama wants to fix the Ranger Force. In this conflict, they however end up switching places, with D taking on the form of Sakurama to destroy it from the inside out. The meeting between D and Sakurama is so important to D's character because it lets him know that there are actually humans on the invaders' side. This is where his destroy all humans mindset really begins to change. D talks a big game, but deep down he's not as evil as the words he speaks. This doesn't affect him that much at the moment, but it is a growing point for his character, one that only continues to grow in the Beilong's Nest arc, and I think so far this is probably the most important arc for his character. In the Beilong's Nest arc, living his life as Sakurama, D has to get close to other unranked rangers in order to fit in and move up the ladder. We see how D is unafraid to use other people in order to achieve his goal, as he does it constantly over and over again throughout this arc. This also tells us that D is perceptive of other people's strengths and weaknesses. We know D doesn't really have a choice to use others though. If he gets hit even once, his cover is blown. So he has to be resourceful in order to pass without being discovered. With the twist of this test being that only one individual from each color could succeed and one person from each team has to pair up, the strong people pair up, D teams up with those who were left behind, using each of their strengths in order to pass the test. During this, he actually shows consideration for these people, and it's not the last time that it will happen, as it appears he did get close to all of the unranked rangers during this test, and will continue to care for what happens to them, as long as they aren't in the way of his end goal. When things inevitably hit the fan with the introduction of an executive, this is where things really kick off. We'll come back to that in a second, as I purposely skipped over a very important character in this arc, XX. XX is an invader who Sakurama was taking care of in his room, an invader who had been on the surface since the executives had invaded. The biggest issue between XX and D is that XX thinks anyone who stayed in the fortress doing what the Rangers told them to do are cowards, not acknowledging that D is now on the surface wanting to change himself and his situation. This perspective changes, however, when D stands up to both the Blue Ranger and the executive. Because D acknowledges that he can't go along with how anyone else wants the world, because that wouldn't be the world he created with his own hands. I know we've mentioned goals a lot, but what is D's goal? That's a two-part answer. He wants his fellow fighters to have a normal and good life, not trapped in the fortress putting on a show every Sunday, living to die with next to nothing. And to punish those who caused it, the Dragon Keepers. That's it. D doesn't hold a grudge against the normal humans or even the Rangers as a whole. He is entirely focused on the root of the problem. This is why he's able to get along with the rest of the unranked and even Hisui. But D's involvement with the Green Rangers is where it gets a bit more complicated, as we have to understand the perspective of both Hisui and Chidori, which we don't have all of the information for at the moment. I may talk about Hisui a bit in the future though. We then come to the fight between Blue and D. What matters in this fight isn't the battle itself, but the end of it. Peltrola interferes with the fight, causing D to land a killing blow. But D isn't happy about this. Why? Because as much as he hates the Rangers, he also has so much pride. Peltrola interfering in this fight takes away from D's own ability to take a Ranger out. He didn't want to win that way and it upsets him. That honor is a huge drive for this character. He may do whatever it takes to win, which can include many sneaky methods like stabbing someone in the back, but he wants to do it by himself with his own two hands. There is so much more that makes his character compelling, but it really stems from what I just talked about. D is a great character because he's flawed, because he is weak. He's somehow the most steadfast in his ideas while also being the weakest person present. A huge theme of Ranger Reject is that only the strong can determine what is just. D's presence is there for the sole purpose of breaking that ideology. I know Ranger Reject is far from done, and I'm happy that we have an anime for it now. I can't wait to see how his character continues to grow, and after this little time skip that happened, I'm hoping we'll get to see a slightly stronger D or even a smarter D. I don't think that's important though. D being weak is one of the most interesting parts of his character, especially if you compare him to someone like Takemichi from Tokyo Revengers. D doesn't let weakness be an excuse for him not getting things done, because he will always find a way to move forward. As always though, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe. Otherwise, peace.